Well, hello, poultry keeping friends. I hope you're having a good evening tonight. We've got a great show for you tonight. We are going to actually demystify the standard of perfection for you. And we're going to do it by using questions that we commonly get fed to us about different parts of the standard. We thought that since you guys want to know, we want to answer your questions for you. And of course, joining me tonight is Alicia Waltz, Jeff Maddox, and Karen Johnson. Good to have you three here, and good to have all our viewers out there that see our account numbers are going up. So that's great. Um, so before we get started, you three, do y'all have anything for the good of the cause? No, no, no. Okay.
Good of what cause? Yeah.
We will go ahead and kick it off then, and we're going to talk about how to apply the standard or demystify the standard for you. Now, I know folks have a lot of questions about this because we get them on a regular basis. So let's dig into it. So, what's our first question? What is the standard of perfection? It is really just a written description. Well, it's more than just a written description, but basically the written description for all the accepted breeds of varieties in poultry. And they are published by the American Poultry Association, and also the American Bantam Association. The ABA, or American Bantam Association, calls theirs the Bantam Standard. There's also a definition of terms, list of disqualifications and defects, scale of points and how to use that, instructions for breeders, exhibitors, and judges, and a lot more as well. And we're going to be taking a look about some of that here in just a second. So we got another question coming up here, Miss Alyssa. Where can I get a copy of the Standard of Perfection? Well, you can either purchase one from the American Poultry Association if you want an APA Standard of Perfection, or if you want the Bantam Standard, you can go to the American Bantam Association and you can Google those online and they'll come right up. Both organizations have an online store that you can use. And here's the links right here on the screen here, American Poultry Association.com/store/ and the bantamclub.com/online store. Good one, Rip. So our next question, I should have keyed Alyssa up there.
Oh, do you need another? I'm sorry, Rip. Yeah. Here you go.
All right. I'm going to go back one so we don't get so confused. Why is the standard so expensive? The APA Standard of Perfection is a hardbound book. It's quite a number of pages. It has a lot of color images in it, and printing that is an expensive proposition. The ABA has a couple of versions of their standard. They have one with colored photos. They also have one that has no photos in it at all. They call it a little pocket version, and it fits great in show coats and that kind of thing. But when you really stop and think about it, the standard is not all that expensive. It's like most any other hobby. When we take up golf, for example, or some other sport, or most knitting, crochet, we need information to help guide us in doing things the right way. And that's what the Standard of Perfection and the Bantam Standard do. They guide you in how to do things the right way. And
are you ready for the next question?
Yeah, next question. Yeah, sorry, Alyssa.
You're good.
Which year of the standard should I buy? That is a great question. Buy the most current standard available. Now, you can buy used versions of old ones. You can even find one free online that's printed, I think, in 1915. The standard has changed a lot, and it changes and is updated with each publication. Now, the next standard that will be published will come out next year, because next year, 2023, is the 150th anniversary for the American Poultry Association, and they have just gone through the process of updating a good bit of that. So that should be a must-have for your collection of standards. But
Rep,
get
can I
the
ask a
most
quick
current one they're
question?
selling. Yes,
Do they tell you what they're changing in each standard? So like they're putting out a new one. They're like, these things or these breeds have been updated. Will they tell you that?
they do before they publish it.
Okay.
And that's because the APA charter and bylaws require them to update the membership about proposed um, changes to the standard.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they do it that. And that also allows members to have input before it's actually changed.
Okay.
So
Can I interrupt with a question from the comments?
yes,
All right. Our crazy chicken lady here wants to know if the most recent standard is from 2010.
I believe there's been one since then.
Yes. I think,
Don't have it. You got
like I
yours.
say, I think the 44th edition is the most
Yes.
recent one. And I think somebody's going to get there faster than me. It's always a little hard to figure out what the year is on these. I know that sounds silly, but I struggle with it.
The one prior to the one Karen's looking through is the 2010.
Yeah,
And
so
that's
this
a
was
great
approved. This was approved by the board of directors in 2015. So,
Yes. Okay.
So like roughly every 5 years? Or is it?
There's really not a set time frame to do that, and some of it depends on how many changes have they made to the standard. You know, how many new breeds or varieties have been added to the standard, and we can tell you where to find that information, and we're going to do that a little bit later. But
I still have more questions. So she said she just bought the 2010, and that I wanted to get to that. So I was once advised to buy the first standard from when your breed entered this system. Do you know what I mean? Like, so say your Australorps were accepted. I'm not going to get this right, so apologize, but were accepted in 1937. So somewhere around there. So get the first standard that they're in, because they said that oftentimes that standard had more details about that bird than later. But I don't really know that that's true.
I don't think I wouldn't subscribe to that theory.
And then Rip is a big keen on saying that most recent year, so that you're getting what they're actually judging on now.
Correct.
Although some people choose to breed towards things that are not what they're judging for now. So you do have some agency there, right? If you want to breed to the 1919 standard, have at it.
That's another whole kettle of fish.
Okay.
There.
All right.
That's another show.
And then all I want to say is just do be careful. There are on Amazon, on eBay, there are lots of $12, $20 standards out there, and they are just going to be the things you can find in Google Books printed.
Yes.
So oftentimes the syntax is not even remotely correct. But one thing that's pretty comparable from year to year, Rip, I just want to make sure you agree, is the first chunk of pages. Do you agree that there's not a lot difference in the 1940 version of the first 40 pages as in the 2015 version?
What Karen is referring to is the first part of the standard, to me, is really the most important part of the standard for anybody to learn, because that's where you're going to find all the terms and all the definitions, all the instructions for judging and for showing and for breeding. It's where you're going to find the scale of points, which will help you in selecting your birds. So those are critical. They usually do not change. There will be some changes and updates in this next standard that's coming out, because they have upgraded the graphics a little bit. They've redone some of them. Frankly, we get a lot of mistakes in our standard, and mostly they're typos and things like that. They had a small army of folks going through that standard, searching for those things to try to get those eliminated and corrected. So trust me, if you have a standard now, that's wonderful, but you really owe it to yourself and to your birds to invest in this next standard that comes out, because that's going to be the Mac Daddy of all the standards out there.
Are they doing the color plates again?
Yes.
Do you know? Okay.
The color plates will will always be featured in the standard.
Well, no, I meant the feather plates. Like my 1970
Oh, no.
anniversary thing
No.
had color plated feather.
And I'm going to talk a little bit more about this in a minute, but those color plates that you're talking about, use those as a guide only. Don't take those images to the bank, because if you've ever worked with printers, over a print run, the colors will change from what they originally started out at. They may go higher or lower in value, but it's just the nature of the business. Even with the digital printing format that so many folks use today, they still have to make the plates and they still have to ink the plates, and it's going to change. So just use those as a guide.
All right, I'll be quiet now.
Okay. What's our next question, Alyssa?
All right. Do you want me to read it?
No, why not? Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Where can I find a standard for breeds and varieties accepted since the last printing?
Go to the either one of the American Poultry Association website or the American Bantam Association website, and they will have the written standard, both the shape and the color variety, if that's what was missing, there on the website that you can download as PDF files. So that information is available. You know, it's not a big secret. And Karen just popped up a picture here. This is an example of the revised standard for the Barnevelder. That's a Dutch breed. And this is an example of a color description standard. Always, always, always go by the written descriptions. Don't go by photos or graphics or anything. Always use the written description.
Well, that kind of answers the next question. That I'm a visual learner. Is it okay to just go by the big pictures in the standard?
Yes, there. As a matter of fact, in the right in the very front of our standard, in the APA, it gives you this little disclaimer notice. The color pictures in the standard of perfection are the artist's interpretation of the written description for each breed and variety portrayed. So they're depending on the artist to be able to interpret what the written standard is. And I think we can all pretty well safely assume that I'm probably going to interpret it slightly different than Karen, who will interpret it slightly different than Jeff, who will interpret it slightly different than Alyssa. The important thing is that you need to learn to interpret that standard for yourself. Don't let anybody sway you in your interpretation. That's really important. So don't, and I know, and I did it too when I was first starting out. I got a standard, I flipped over and I started looking at the pictures. Of course, back then it was all in black and white. There weren't any colored images. But I mean, that's good to do that, but don't use that as your sole tool of interpretation. Go by the written description. That's really, really important.
All right.
Okay, what's our next one?
All right. Why is the wording in the SOP so confusing?
I am glad you asked that. It is confusing, I know, for some. I know it was confusing for me when I first started out. You see the words used like moderate or relatively or moderately wide is one I'll use to describe the back of a bird. What is moderately? How would I interpret moderate?
It's vague.
Well, we've really got, the way I've learned to interpret this is you've got narrows, you got medium width, and you got wide width backs. So if it's moderately wide, to me that falls in between medium and wide. So it's moderately wide. Now, where some people go astray is they will transfer what they're reading and try to compare it to other breeds to see what it's like in other breeds. That's not going to work. When you start comparing Rhode Island Reds to Leghorns, there's no comparison. Each breed has a different shape. Each breed is balanced differently. So what looks wide on a red is probably going to not look wide on a Leghorn. So don't switch back and forth between breeds. And it's something that's going to come with experience, and visiting with folks. If you have a chance to get to a show and talk with some of the breeders, they can help get you started. And that's a good place to start, by the way. In the standard, you're going to find things like all kinds of definitions. We were talking about that earlier. Things like about what are caruncles? What does cavernous mean? How do we apply that in the standard? What is a chestnut color? What is close feathered? Cockerel? Combs? There's probably, what, Karen, 6 or 7 pages of just definitions in there that can help you really understand that. So
I'm sitting down here blown away by saying don't compare the breeds against each other, because that is 100% what I thought I was supposed to do.
no,
I thought the only way to know what a long back is to look for a breed that has a medium back and look for a breed that has a short back. And
look within your
So,
birds. Look within your birds that you're raising. When you go through your birds and you handle your birds, you're going to find some that have long backs, some that have shorter backs, and some that are somewhere in between. That's how you learn it.
I'm believing you.
And I know you raise reds, bless your heart. But if you're comparing those to white Leghorns and you're thinking that a white Leghorn, okay, that's what I need in a long back should look like that white Leghorn right there. You're raising Rhode Island Reds. You are not raising white Leghorns. That's why you don't compare between breeds. That's where some people can actually change the shape of their bird by doing that. And remember, each bird has its own unique type. Each one is different.
Well, I know that, but I mean, if you're just looking at the depth of a bird, or if you're just looking at the length of a back, not the whole bird, not the whole shape, but just an individual part, like a neck. If you were looking at a short-necked bird versus a long-necked bird, but you're saying no, you're just only, okay. I believe you.
I
got to think that through. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to wrap my head around that one too.
So,
but I guess it makes sense, because if you compare to another breed, then you're not going to meet those standards. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay.
Exactly
Ingrid,
right.
Ingrid wants to know if years of experience helps.
It certainly does. It certainly does. Experience
Shaggy,
helps.
We're all going to sit here and go, okay, I think I get it. Yeah.
And also another thing that helps is finding somebody who will mentor you in the breed that you have. That was the biggest turnaround for me, was finding somebody who would tell me the things that I needed to know, like I'm sharing with you, because I was doing the same things. I said, well, but a white rock, and Mr. Reese would say, we ain't raising white rocks. We're raising Rhode Island Reds.
All right, I'll put your thing back up.
Oh, that's
I like it because I can drink under here. Nobody can see me.
I know you keep disappearing.
Jeff wants to be down here, but I won't let him.
You've claimed this spot. Are you ready for the next question, Ray?
Next question.
All right. So why are there no precise measurements given in a breed
Oh, good
description?
one. And some of that we kind of touched on earlier, and I know it's a normal thing to want to know exactly, precisely, this chicken should be this high, or the back should be this wide in inches, or the tail should be this long in inches, the shank should be this long.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to find a delicate way to put this, but it's all in how we learn to interpret. And as long as we interpret consistently, our birds will reflect that interpretation our interpretation of that standard. If we had those precise measurements, nobody would ever win a show. I can guarantee you, because the judge would be out there with a ruler and a yardstick measuring all these things. It would take forever to get a show judged, and you wouldn't find any of them that matched those measurements precisely. And that's why we have the term moderately long or moderately wide. Yeah, it's open for interpretation, and it gives us a little wiggle room, so our birds can meet the standard. But it's the way it's always been done. They've been having that wiggle room ever since they wrote the first standard back in 1914. So it can be a little confusing to start with, but don't let it be. Resist the urge. What's our next question, Alyssa?
All right. Sorry, I was pondering on that, what you just were talking about. Okay. Can I get the standard for just my breed? I don't need all the breeds.
No, you cannot. Now, there is some discussion about maybe offering that, but currently the only way to get the standard for a breed is to buy the standard.
Do you think they'll ever break it up?
I know they're looking into it. Frankly, I know for the APA, it's a funding issue because that's where they derive a big chunk of their money.
Right.
To do the things that they do is from the sales of standards.
Okay.
If they make it available as a digital format, then honestly, anybody else could snag it off the internet or whatever. I don't look for the board to do that unless they can figure out some way to really and truly lock that down.
That makes sense. All right. Rip, is it okay to compare one breed against another when the same terminology is used?
Not going to change my answer. You're trying to trick me.
Are you sure? You want to think about it?
No. Again, never compare one breed to another.
Okay.
Even when the same terminology is used. Because you could be dealing with different factors like different weights of a bird could come into play. A lot of things can affect that.
All right. So the answer is definitely not.
Definitely. That's a big no-no.
Okay. All right. What do terms like
I came up to ask a question.
relatively long, relatively wide mean?
And we talked a little bit moderate width. Moderate length would be the same thing. It's going to be somewhere between medium length and long length. And as you're going through and evaluating your birds and picking out the birds you want to keep and move forward with, you're going to find birds in your flock that, this one's got a much longer back than this bird over here. Well, I don't want to use this bird over here. So he's not retained. You keep the bird that has that moderately long back. Relatively wide or long, basically the same thing. It's not long, but it's longer than medium, and it's definitely longer than short. So
what I keep getting stuck on is like moderately to me is going to be different from moderately to Jeff or moderately to Karen or moderately to you. So that's going to be judge. How is that handled? If that's on topic, we don't have to go about it.
Well, as long as the birds meet the standard, and if you're comparing your breed against itself, that will eliminate some of that. There is kind of built into that standard. I was talking about wiggle room a little bit earlier. That's some of that wiggle room. As long as you think you've got a bird with a long back and that bird looks balanced. In other words, he doesn't look like he's all back. You're okay.
Okay.
You're okay.
All right. I have one more question. So you're talking about you're out there and this bird has a shorter back. This one's in the middle. This one's longer. But if you have good birds, like it's possible that none of your birds' backs are too long, right? Like if you
Correct.
have good backs on your birds and you're looking for moderately long, you might be choosing the birds with the longest backs because they are the right length, right? They haven't gone too far. I mean, eventually they'll go too far because that's what
Yes.
chickens do. As soon as you,
It goes back
as
to
long
what
as
I
you
was
think
talking
you get
about.
it good, then
They need to have good balance.
okay.
Do all the body parts work well in unison when you look at that bird?
That makes sense.
All right. I'm just thinking, I'm like, I don't want to go out there and be like, nope, you're the longest, so you're out of here, and you're the shortest, so you're out of here. But because the longest could be the right place
Mhm.
if all right. I'm getting out of here now.
All right. Okay, so for the next question,
Mm-hmm.
what are the disqualifications for my breed?
Oh, I'm glad you asked that one too. There are general disqualifications, and they're all spelled out in that first part of the standard, first 40 or so pages.
Mhm.
But there can be some breed specific disqualifications as well. For example, you wouldn't expect to find a breed specific disqualification like eye color spelled out in the standard. What you're going to find under the general disqualifications are things that can disqualify any bird. But eye color, and Morans, for example, no black eyes. Um, but side sprigs, which is a disqualification in the comb, that's a general disqualification. You can find that in most any breed.
Put up this Barnvelder one because that one has disqualifications up in the top. It's going to be in the first part of the standard, right? You can't read it, but it says white in the earlobes.
Hmm.
That's like a disqualification for this specific breed. Now that's a disqualification in many breeds, but
Why?
it's not a general disqualification specific to.
And sometimes breed clubs will stick those things in there if they're having a known problem with that particular thing in that particular breed.
Okay. All right. So, is it important to consider production qualities when evaluating birds for standard qualities?
Absolutely. Here's a little snippet out of the APA standard. Judges and breeders, therefore, in all cases, are instructed to give full consideration to those fundamental characteristics which are necessary to maintain vigor and production at the highest level, consistent with their breed type. And if you're not sure what your breed calls for, if you'll go back in the standard, one of the first things that it talks about in breeds is economic qualities. Are they supposed to be really good for laying eggs? Are they supposed to be really good as meat birds? That will guide you in what those production qualities that you should be selecting for are.
Okay.
So absolutely, and I'm going to be honest with you, and I'm not careful, I'll be on my soapbox here. But breeders do not pay enough attention to the production quality of birds today. That's a sad comment, but it's true.
If you're
Go ahead.
if the standard, so oftentimes in the standard, in that first little part, it'll tell you, there'll be a little blurb that will sort of give you a hint as to why that bird existed, or
Correct.
what its purpose was. So for some birds' purposes, they were purposed to be an ornamental bird, in which case
Correct.
we pay exact attention to their production qualities because their production qualities were to be ornamental, right?
Right. But you still need to work on that, focus on that a little bit, because if you don't, you're going to lose vigor in your birds. And if your birds can't lay worth 2 cents, they can't reproduce.
Right.
So you can kind of not pay attention to it, but you got to pay attention to it, if that makes any sense.
Only if you want to make more, which is sort of the purpose of breeding.
Well, that's
Yeah. All right. Are we ready for the next question?
Ta-da! Yes.
All right. So, is it in? That's the same one. So, can birds be properly evaluated just by looking at them?
No, they cannot. Good friend of mine and fellow judge Matt Lamont has a little quote that he uses: "You don't know unless you handle your bird." Now, what he's talking about is the body structure. That body structure is key, and learning how those birds need to be put together and are put together so you can compare that are really, really important. So you can't just look at a bird. You can come close sometimes, but you can't really just look at a bird. And a little bit later on, I've got some screenshots from a video that Mandolin Royal shared today, where she's comparing American breast carcasses to black silver Marron carcasses, and it's pretty eye opening.
Do you want to
And
go to that? Or
yeah,
is there-
can you pull that up?
Yeah.
Ta-da! All right, quick question: which one of those is the biggest bird?
Jeff, you have to answer
Why do I have to answer?
because the three of us were here earlier when he asked that, and you weren't here yet. Yeah.
Yeah. Appearances would fool you that the one on the left, being plumper, would be the bigger bird. But if you weighed them, the bird on the right would have more weight.
Yes, the bird on the right actually weighs. I'm thinking I was talking about 5 or 6 ounces more than the bird on the left. The bird on the left is the breast. The bird on the right is the Marrons. So you would have never noticed that or
Were
never
they
known that.
similar in age? I'm trying to remember now from the video.
These birds
Okay.
were both about a year old, I believe she said.
That's what I was thinking too.
And if you've not seen her video, she shared it on Poultry Keepers 360. Go there and watch it because it will make a believer out of you. And we've got another slide here when you're talking about. Now here's a defect. Now, if you can see where the red arrow is pointing, it's pointing to the keel bone, and you see that slight bow or crook in that keel bone. That's a defect you don't want in your birds. You would never see that just by looking at the bird.
You have
So
to feel it. Yeah.
you've heard me talk about it before, and you'll hear me talk about it again, but you got to handle your birds so you know what you truly have. Your hands are your second set of eyes in this situation.
I'm gonna double go in to watch that video because she talks about pelvic width in there. She talks
Yes.
about length of keel, in addition to and the fleshing around the keel. So I go watch it. Yeah.
It's really good. It's really well done, and I'm very grateful for her allowing us to use these screenshots from her video.
All right. So is it really all that important to learn how to apply the scale of points?
Absolutely. Learning to apply the scale of points is going to make your life so much easier when you're selecting birds, because you will know how much you need to cut and how much a judge cuts for a particular fault. Let's say your breed is supposed to have a 5-point comb, but you have 7. Quick question, Karen, how many points do I cut?
Oh. I don't know. Let me see.
That's-
Comb.
It's not going to find it there. Each
It's
extra
half
point
a point or something.
is a 1/2-point cut. So if you had 7 points, it's supposed to have 5, then you cut that 1 point. And this is
I have a dumb question.
part, yes,
That's
ma'am.
like the scoring system. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's the same ones that judges use. They're going through each and every one of these things in their mind when they're judging birds. Now, they used to actually have scorecards on the bird's coop, and they literally went through and used a scale of points, and they wrote down the point deductions for each topic there, or each heading there. And it finally got to the point it's a very time-consuming process to judge birds that way. Judges today only have literally a few minutes to look at your bird. Actually, probably closer to 1 or 2 minutes to evaluate your bird. And honestly, to do a good job, you need to, you really need to go through this scale of points and learn how to use it. And I had somebody tell me one time, if you don't know your breed and your birds better than the judge does, you are doing something wrong. Because the judge has to know basics of every breed in the standard, and that, and in the AP standard, that's chickens and bantams and waterfowl and turkeys and guineas. We have to know all of that.
Okay.
And we have to learn to apply that quickly. Whereas you have the leisure of having more time, and you can do a better job, a more thorough job of evaluating your birds if you practice using and interpreting the standard.
Makes sense. All right. So what can I do if the breed / variety I'm working with has not been recognized yet? Was I supposed to say has not been?
Have not been recognized.
Okay.
A lot of the breeds that they're working on, and there's several out there, the leg bars, breasts come to mind. There are breed clubs out there, and they have quote unquote proposed standards that they're using to develop these birds and get them ready for the APA acceptance process, which is much more involved than it used to be. It used to be pretty quick and straightforward, and people were just jamming new breeds in there and not paying their attention to them anymore, or new color varieties. You know, black crested white Polish was one. I remember when that was approved, and within about a year and a half, you couldn't find one at the show anywhere. So now it's a 5-year process to get a new breed or a new variety approved. And it takes 5 people who have been APA members for 5 years working on them to do that. You have to show X number of birds. And then once they have accepted sort of the proposed standard and all that, they will establish 2 qualification meets. One can be most anywhere. The other one has to be at the APA national conventions for that year. And they got to be about 2 years apart. So you're really looking at about 7 years. If we were to start today on a new breed variety, we're looking at 7 years to get them accepted by the APA.
So it's not a quick process.
It is not a quick process. Now, there are some birds out there that, to my knowledge, there are no breed clubs working with them here in America. But let's say the breed is initially from England. You can probably find a copy of the breed standard through the British Poultry Club, and that will at least give you something to go on. But this business of saying I've got English this or English that, and then you're not breeding them to a standard, you just got chickens, because you can't breed to you can't make them look uniform if you don't have a standard. Okay, what we got?
All right. So will visiting a show help me understand how to apply the written standard?
Yes. And you can do that. Take your standard to the show, compare the written standard to the birds you see there in the coop. Now, you can't take them out and handle them or anything like that. And talk to the breeders and ask them if they see that you are sincere and wanting to do things the right way and you want to learn more, they'll help you. But if they don't sense that you're being sincere about all this, you may not find the help you're trying to get. It's poultry showing is a lot about building relationships, just like so many other things in life are.
So, Rip, how much explanation does the judge give at the end of the show after he's made the judgments, or he or she has made the judgments?
Don't wait for the judge to come seek you out after he's done judging and everything's over. Go ask the judge, what did you like or dislike about my birds? What can I do to correct my birds? How can I improve them? How can I make them better? Most judges will bend over backwards to help you and to answer your questions for you. But
Okay.
you got to go to them. But honestly, by the time I got through judging the show, I couldn't tell you. I have no way of knowing, first off, who owns what birds, because they don't have your name on the coop tag. I have just
Okay.
a number. And it good way to get your head knocked in if you ever saw a judge walking around with an exhibitors list, because that would give him the knowledge of what number belonged to who.
And you should
You
approach
just
the judge by
judges just don't
saying
do that.
they were
or they
totally
shouldn't do
wrong
that.
and your bird was better, right?
So it's pretty much.
Oh, he's glitching out. I don't think he
Oh,
got to hear
sorry.
that.
You back, Rip?
Let's see. Carol says, wouldn't it be a good idea to take your SOP to a large poultry show and compare scores with the book? You can research the book and the file before judging and ask a bird if you have questions. Excellent point. But now remember, when we're judging the show, we're not truly, we're making a quick mental note of deductions and that kind of thing, but we're not writing it down anywhere. So don't expect us to be able to go back and say, we need to.
This is happening because Rip is the only one with the answers tonight. So
So Karen, have you been to a show before?
I have visited shows. I have
No.
walked around. I have
Okay.
not ever entered a show because my birds are not there yet and I'm too scared. So
I think that would be pretty intimidating.
um,
So does the judge handle the show? I apologize if that's another dumb question.
handle the
Bird.
yes, I can answer that. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, they do not handle every bird. I would say
Okay.
that they handle a lot of the birds, and
Mhm.
if they're anywhere close to putting a bird up as some sort of winner, then they would handle each of those. So,
I think Rip's back.
woo woo.
Yep, we kind of all went south on that one, didn't we?
No, just you.
Just
Yep.
me?
Just you.
Guilty as charged. Sorry about that.
Um,
Dropped out of the world here.
all right. Shaggy would very much like them to bring the scorecard back. Having his birds, or her, I don't know, Shaggy, having my birds judge provides no help at all. So,
Shaggy, I understand where you're coming from, but it's simply this day and time, it's not practical. When years ago, judges, when they were doing scorecards, were probably judging less than 200 birds in a show. Today's shows, we're expected to judge upwards of 400 birds in a show. We literally have only a minute and a half to go through each bird, and we just don't have time to do that. But like we were talking about earlier before I bailed off here for some reason, if you wait till after all the judging is over and ask the judge to go over your birds with you, most of them, 95% of them are willing to do that unless they're got to go catch a fight or something like that. They'll be happy to do that.
all right. Let's see. We've got three more questions here. Well, we're talking about Shaggy, so let's keep on the Shaggy train here. Shaggy and I have difficulty understanding what is considered straw color, the color as related to the breed salmon faverels. No one can advise if it's a cream color or a light golden yellow.
Shaggy, excuse me, Laura.
Yeah.
The way I would interpret that, what color is a bale of straw?
How old is that bale of straw? Yeah.
Huh?
How old is that bale of straw?
Has it been sitting outside?
Yeah.
It's one of those things that there's not a clear-cut answer. But to me, straw color is not cream. Straw color leans more to that light golden yellow color.
Is that where like a breed club would be? Maybe somewhere to head to ask that kind of question where
Yes.
Because the standard does, the word straw does not have color straw. You can't look that up in the dictionary. So there's a little, wiggle room there. I feel like there was that same problem with the well summers. It was just, did you prefer the darker mahogany or the lighter brown? Do you know what I mean? Like,
Exactly.
but I feel like the breed club had choices. Oops, hold on. See, while you were gone, I tried to answer a question of Alyssa's and I got it wrong. Edgar's going to help me out here. So she asked if the judges handled every bird. And I said they didn't handle quite all of them, but if they were going to come anywhere close to placing them, they would. So Edgar, go ahead.
Edgar is exactly right. You'll get fussed at if you don't handle somebody's bird, because they're paying for the judge's opinion, and you can't give an honest opinion if you don't handle the bird. That's the bottom line. So yeah, they should be handling those birds. Like Edgar says, unless they're obviously sick or of really inferior quality.
See what happens when you leave? We give bad
I'll just run
information.
amok. What can I say?
Laura says the breed club has been no help whatsoever. So sorry, Laura. All right.
Laura, if when you go to a show, grab a judge, ask him for his interpretation. Ask more than one, because you're probably going to get a slight variation. Nothing wrong with that.
All right. My detective skills tell me that Jeff would like to know if tame birds score better in a show than an ornery bird.
Yeah, I want to know. I mean, that's
Inquiring minds want to know.
I mean, if I was a judge, it would make a difference, but I don't know, how Rip and the actual judges, if a bird handles well, does he tend to score a little bit better than a bird that's hard to hold?
Typically, that is the case, Jeff. Birds who are flighty and flapping around the cage, and I was judging a small class of Egyptian Fayumis, and they were flying laps around the inside of that coop as I was just standing there looking at them. They don't show well. You can't evaluate type. You can't evaluate balance. But on the other hand, you don't want birds that are overly calm and just kind of standing there do watching the world go by. You want them to be perk up and a little vigor there to them. So birds that are like that show much better than those really, really calm birds. So it's a bit of a balancing act, but yes, birds that are wild and flighty typically do not score as well.
Jim Adkins is telling me that I am super naughty and that he always handles the birds, which I should know since that's the only shows I've been to. So I'm sorry that I messed up that question. Yeah.
Dang, Karen.
I'm in trouble. All right. I got see. Let's go. Let's go with this one. So they are starting with Silver Lace Wyandottes. That's my guess. The only online standard of perfection they can pull up on the internet are standards from England.
That is because Silver-Laced Wyandottes are recognized American Poultry Association breed and variety, and the only place to find the standard is in the written standard of perfection. It's all copyrighted information, and so it can't be disseminated over the internet or online.
I did stop just before the show today. I did go to my library just to see if my library had one, and they did not. But there is rumor that there's quite a few public libraries that have standards of perfection. So
Really?
if you, and I know my library system has a trading that I could probably request one to be sent my way, but my little local one did not have one today. I was going to take a picture of it, but
They let you down.
yeah, well, I didn't plan ahead. If I'd planned ahead, I could have handled that. All right. And this is going to be our last question, Rip, unless something else comes in. Is there, let's see, I wanted to see who this was. Ingrid wants to know, is there a reason why they chose to use paintings as depictions instead of pictures of actual specimens that meet the standard?
And I'm just making a supposition here on my part. but they probably couldn't find really good birds to photograph and get photographs. And that's why they went, even in the old standards, they used photographs, yes, but those were retouched by a poultry artist. He made the birds look better than they actually were in real life. So that's an expensive process when you get into retouching photographs and all that kind of stuff. Well, that's the best answer I've got for you.
All right, so we have to. Oh, look, Shaggy's coming to my defense. They don't handle the guinea fowl.
Some
Thank you,
judges
Shaggy.
will, some judges won't.
Thought I was going to get out of it. I did see a judge lugging around a big goose. I felt a little bit bad for them at that point.
Just carrying it around.
Well, handling it to judge. Yeah.
If we can judge those big geese and turkeys, we can do a guinea fowl.
Yeah. So Sarah wants to put her 2 cents in that really wish there was a more affordable version available for 4-H kids. Then
Sarah, what I know some 4-H clubs have done, I think, and this is probably done through the county buys a standard of 2, and then they kind of rotate it around to the different clubs to use and refer to.
And I'm just going to put this up again so you can say one more time. So how do you find a standard of perfection, Rep, in case they weren't here for the beginning of the show?
She probably missed the beginning of the show
Yeah,
when we went over that. But you can purchase one from the American Poultry Association, and you can find them online. And they have an online store, and you can order it right there. Karen flipped up the, it's American, AMERPOULTRYASSN.com. And you can go straight to their online store and buy one online, and they'll ship it right to you.
And you want to get the most recent version.
Yes. And they will only sell you the most recent version unless you specifically ask for a back issue.
Oh, okay.
All right. Crazy Chicken Lady wants to know what's the best place to go to find dates and times of local shows so that she can go study the birds.
PoultryShowCentral.com.
There's another website that has just started running a calendar. Do you know what that is?
Well, they've actually had it for a long time. They've just started kind of promoting that, and I don't know it off the top of my head.
Well,
if you'll search Poultry Show Central, they have a great calendar. It's searchable by state, by region, by dates. Any way you want to search it, you can search and find out when the shows are in your area.
and I was actually trying to give a plug here for Chrome tab. The if you submit them, the APA website now is putting up an event calendar for shows as well on the American Poultry Association website. So
they are.
Yep.
That's a feature that they've just started, and,
Yep.
and so they are relying for clubs and all that to update the information. So
absolutely.
may not be really current.
So if you run a show and you want them to show it, get it in there. And
I do know that Poultry Show Central, if the show club has a website, they'll also have a link to that website, or at least an email or someone you can contact for more information.
And going back to that year of the standard, and that I also hear people often recommend that you get the black and white photos as opposed to the colored photos. What do you think, Rip?
I like the old shilling black and white photos.
Okay, so that's going back, because there's a couple different versions of black and whites. I mean, I have a 1998 paperback version that has black and white photos, but I don't think those are the shilling photos.
They are.
They are? Okay. So,
But they've been photographed for printing so many times, they've lost some detail.
okay.
But those photos that Schilling did were retouched, so they are spot on for shape.
Okay.
Of course, you can't tell color by the black and white photos, but here again, don't rely on photos. Rely on the written standard description.
But it can help with type, though, right?
Yes,
The photos, if you.
it will give you a much better idea than the color graphics in the APA standard today.
Oh. All right. Are we coming back ever again? Or is this our last show? I'm scaring everybody.
What? We'll be back in 2 weeks.
Most of us will be back in 2 weeks. Some of us are going fishing.
Well, I wish I was going with some of us. Sounds like a plan to me. What are we going to be talking about, Karen? It was your idea, and now I've forgotten what
it was.
Getting birds ready to show.
Yeah, I was going to say I should have waited and put up Jeff's comment about the is a calm bird better and do a tame bird score better than an ornery bird, because that's that whole thing of how to get your birds ready for show. So we'll see what Rip can come through with. I don't know if he's going to talk about cage training or if he's going to talk about shampooing, or if he's going to talk about if you feed them right before the judge comes by, or I don't know what he's going to tell us, but he's going to help us learn. Okay.
Conditioning a bird to show starts before the hatching egg is laid.
All right, so he's got a tiny little list for us about how to get our
No, I didn't say
best
that.
prepared
I just said
for
that's
show.
where it starts.
But but that's what we're going to be talking about. So, all right, and somebody thinks Jeff deserves to go fishing. Is that his?
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, that's Ingrid. I thought maybe he put that in there too.
I did not.
I did
not. So, Rip, you talked about the national show. Are you talking about the National Poultry Conference? Is that what you're referring to?
The American Poultry Association's annual conference is their national show, so to speak. Next year it will be in Ohio at the Columbus National.
Okay, because I just looked something up and it said the National Poultry Conference was going to be in Philadelphia.
I think that's the commercial end of things, which the APA doesn't get involved with those.
No, I went to the APA website, so
really,
yeah. That's why I was confused, and it says the MPC 23 will be in Philadelphia, and if that was the right one, I'd make a plan to go. So, but
hang on just a minute.
If it's in Columbus, then
all right. Chase is putting a call out to anybody who has the Dutch Bantam standard that he'd like to talk to you. So just throwing that out there while you guys are talking.
And now I can't find it on their website, Jeff. Sorry. But I'll find that out and get back with you on that. Anybody else have any other questions?
Well, you can answer Rodney's if you understand it. I didn't quite get it. But should every country standard reflect what the bird of origin standard is? So if I read that, if you have a Dutch Welsummer, should the U.S. Welsummer standard be the same as the Dutch Welsummer standard? And since I know they are not, I use that example.
Yes, they are not.
Yeah.
I think I would qualify that my personal feelings only are that it should follow it as closely as possible. But you get into some countries, they have birds, and I'm going to fall back to Rhode Island Reds. Rhode Island Reds for some other countries don't look anything at all like Rhode Island Reds that were created here in the United States. So should they? In my opinion, yes. But do they? Sometimes no.
All right. I think we're done. Anybody want to say goodbye? Oh,
well,
what else? What else is today, Alyssa? What else going on in the world today? Is it, anybody's birthday?
No, it is not.
Are you
think it
sure?
might be. Is it Rip's birthday today?
I think it might be. I think he told us he was 51 today.
I wish I was 51.
You're looking
I'm
great.
71 today.
51.
Thank you very much.
71. Oh, that's close. That's close.
But
So happy birthday, Rip. Get
Thank
to
you
tell
ver-
you
thank you
now,
very much.
personally.
I don't do birthday parties or parties.
He does
of
live
any
streams for his birthday.
kind.
So
Huh?
you don't want us to sing? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that would be appreciated. But not-
Jeff can play it on the kazoo. I've heard a rumor.
No. Someone lied. Someone
Harmonica.
lied.
Right.
There we go.
Harmonica
I
would be
wanted
fun.
one person to say happy birthday before we left.
Yay.
So thank you, Kylie,
All
for
right.
doing
Well,
that.
I appreciate it, everyone, and don't really feel much older than I did yesterday, to be honest with you.
That's weird. All right.
So, everybody, thanks for watching, and we hope to see you in 2 weeks' time when we're back here with you. It's going to be a fun time then, just like it was a fun time today. So, until next time, keep
June
working with your
14th.
birds,
Yeah.
having a good time with them.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
We hope you've enjoyed this presentation by Poultry Keepers 360. All rights are reserved. This production has been made possible in part through the generous support of the Fur Trail Company, manufacturers of gardening and livestock products that are better naturally.